Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. Oh my gosh, I don't have my coffee. How ridiculous. Today we are going to have a fantastic and fun conversation with the wonderful Philip Anthony of the Downright Upright Show. Welcome, Philip. How's it going?
Oh my God, it's great, and thank you for having me.
I'm really excited.
I'm so excited about being here.
Yes, yes, yes.
You have a beautiful studio, by the way.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yep, you know what, that's a good point. Thank you to MCN6, and thank you to the Minnesota Department of Health for the grant that sponsors this show.
Absolutely.
That's nice. That's
Absolutely.
Nice.
You got to thank everyone.
Yeah.
It's a great show.
Now, tell us about Downright Upright.
Yeah, well, let's start from the beginning. How's that?
Why not?
So a few years ago during the 2020 election, there was a Pete Buttigieg campaign event.
Mayor Pete, yeah.
Love Mayor Pete. And I was in the audience, you know, and they were talking and blah, blah, blah. And this woman was doing a podcast. And she walked up to the people in the audience and she picked me. And she says, would you like to do be on my podcast? And I'm like, okay, you know. And so she asked me a few questions. I watched how she, you know, operated the machine, what model number it was, the whole deal, you know.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to, and I was friendly with at the time, because I used to go to this thing at AM 950 called the Blue State Ball.
Okay.
And he was there, and I told him about the event, and then I think I can do this podcast if you'd have me.
So someone from AM 950 was at the Blue State Ball.
The owner, yes.
Okay.
He attends it, you know, along with the other hosts.
Yeah.
And they were talking to me about podcasting, because, you know, as you know, radio right now is, the demographic is older demographic, like my age.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 22, folks.
I mean, you're young enough to have your own show, but whatever.
Yeah, okay. And so we wanted to get podcasting introduced.
Yeah.
So I started doing it in May of 2022. This is 2023. So I've been on for about a year and a few months, and it's been going great. And yeah.
So it took about 2 years almost, it sounds like, from when someone first asked you if you wanted to be on a podcast to finding someone who would help support you and launching a podcast.
Yes. Give me a forum. Yes.
Now, how did you, well, I should even like probe more. What do you think it is about you that attracted the Pete Buttigieg podcaster?
Oh, well, I'm very engaging.
I agree.
That's what they say. So I was in the audience, and everybody was like gravitating towards me, and I guess the lady kind of wanted me on her podcast, and it's called Travels with Pete, I believe, and her name's Sue Ann Rollins.
Okay.
So hi, Sue Ann, if you're out there.
Do you know if it's still on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She has a different one now. Oh. She interviews people about their occupations.
Nice.
Because Pete Buttigieg isn't running anymore for president.
Right.
He's actually now the Secretary of Transportation.
He's running marathons and running our transportation.
Yeah, and has 2 children, and he's got a full plate. So,
so that same charisma then that she noticed, you also brought to this Blue State Ball. And through one conversation, they were just like, yep.
The owner, he says, you just, you know, I think he kind of saw that in me.
Yeah.
That I am very approachable. And I think it's a host, just like you are, I think a good host has to be approachable. You know, the guest has to sit across from you and be able, you know, to let out what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And how, you know, so you have it's like having a conversation in your living room, you know, and you're good at that.
Well, the name. Why don't we start with the name?
Oh,
How did you come up with Downright Upright?
You like that name, huh?
It's like fun in the mouth, you know?
Yeah, I was on another show and they asked me the same question. I love this question because it's a creation of my own. So I wanted to introduce something political but yet quirky.
Okay.
So the red arrow is going down, and the blue arrow is going up. So Downright Upright, and you can figure out for yourself. But, and I thought it was quirky, and they liked it at the station. They said, that's very, you're not out and out being, you know, rude. It's just funny. And I said, yeah. So that's what I did.
So do you feel like quirky and political kind of describe your show a little bit?
I wanted to make it because, as I said to you before the show, we were talking about how all these things are going on in the world and it's really sad.
Yeah.
And I do talk about those things. You know, I do have a serious side, obviously, so I talk about those things. But you have to inject a little bit of humor into life, because life is so sad and so sometimes can be really depressing. So you have to inject humor. It's like a medicine, I think. And just imagine if everybody had a bit of humor and injected into the world, what it would be like. You know what I'm saying? So
it's quirky, it's political. There's some humorous medicine. Like, is this what people, what you want people to get out of your show? Or is there something else? Is there like a mission and vision, you know?
That's a good question too. I think, first and foremost, I want to get my guests' message out more than my own, because I learn from my guests, and I always say that in every interview I've been on. I think this is a learning experience for me. So the person sitting across from me is saying things to me that I probably never heard of before. And even though I did all the legwork on them, you know, I looked up, you know, their biographies and I would still learn stuff that I didn't know from the biography. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's my favorite thing about the show, is educating the people, myself. And then, of course, you know, learning about what's going on in the world and trying to make it a better place, I guess. You know, if I could, being a little idealist.
I guess.
Being a little idealistic, because, you know, like, you have to be, man. You know, the world is so downright not upright. So I want to be downright upright. I want to make people tune in and say, wow, he's uplifting.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm hearing a little bit maybe about like the underpinnings of your show, like why you thought, oh my gosh, I need to do this, or this is something that I can do to help. But you had a lot of options. So like podcasting in particular, like, have you always been a great conversationalist? Or, okay, because there are different types of podcasts, right? There are definitely podcasts where people talk at their audience, you know. There are podcasts where people, they ask their guests to record their answers, and then they submit them just without an actual conversation. But you are doing like an actual honest-to-goodness conversation, just like we're having here.
Ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, you know, I do have guidelines. I do have notes to myself what I want to talk about. But I'll bring up a subject and then the person just talks about it. But again, there's an interview before I get into the current events. Yeah. I talk about, you know, like what their journey is, why, what they have to say is important, why what they have to say is important. And so that's more the important part of the show. And then, of course, the current events. There's a part of the show I like to call the shift. If any of you out there have listened to my podcast,
and
it's called The Shift.
Okay.
And make sure you say the F, because then we get in trouble with the sponsor. So that's another thing I say on the show. But yeah, and then we shift the questioning away from the personal journey of the guest, and we talk about what their opinions are of what's going on in the world. And that's where it becomes super interesting too, because not only they talk about themselves, they connect that to what's going on and their opinions of what's going on. So, yeah.
So, did you want to be a journalist growing up?
Never.
You're kidding. Because I've listened to you describe the show and like wanting to get the message out of your guests, but also having like a little bit of an agenda, you know?
I do.
Of your own.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a big advocate for the LGBTQ community.
Well, yeah.
As my socks will indicate. I
like
them. Oh, they're cute. Yeah. And I just don't think there's enough programming about our community. I really don't.
Yeah.
Watch TV, man. You know, you see, and I have nothing against heterosexual people. My parents were heterosexual my life. I grew up, you know, in that community. I'm just saying that I don't see myself on TV. I don't see myself in commercials. I don't see the only time you'll see a commercial about an LGBT person is if it's an AIDS drug.
Oh, okay.
Think about it.
Okay.
Have you ever seen two guys, you know, shopping together and holding hands? No, it's not. It's
very uncommon.
Very.
Yeah.
So I wanted my show, even though it's not totally about LGBT issues, I always inject an issue, an LGBT issue on my show all the time. And the guests, most of them have LGBTQ connections. So that's, you know, not all the time, but they're definitely allies.
Yes. So
definitely allies, yes.
You've got, I think when I last counted, like 41, you might be up by now, 41 streamable podcast episodes.
Yes.
With LGBTQ folks and allies.
And allies, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite?
Oh my God, you're gonna get me in trouble,
Pick one of your
Jerome.
babies.
My favorite. Okay. Well, I like them all, but if you know, you stick it to me, I would have to say my hero was Scott Dibble, Senator Scott Dibble, who he's a state senator who always had our back. He pushed for marriage equality, trans rights. I mean, he's just an amazing human being, and he's great. You know, great man. Met him in person a couple times at Pride, and also Mike McEntee was also on my show. He did that movie about marriage equality. Yeah. And if it wasn't for marriage equality, obviously you and me, you and me, yeah. My grammar is pretty bad. Would not be in a committed. Well, you could be in a committed relationship, but it wouldn't be recognized.
I have talked about my husband on the show. Yeah. Yeah.
You have. Okay,
I complain about him all the time.
Did I out you? No.
No.
But I talk about my husband on my show. Yeah. I love my husband. It's an amazing human being. The biggest heart of any person I've ever met in my life, and I can honestly say that. And I'm, you know, I'm a very lucky guy, you know. Part
of the reason why I intentionally always bring my husband up, like in some story or whatever, is just to humanize our experience, because we don't, I'm sure this comes up on your show, we don't talk politics too much here, but there are people who are like literally flying around the world, meeting with world leaders to lobby against our community, who are saying, oh my gosh, you know, don't let the gays have any rights in your country. It's bananas. like you've got to have like a better cause that you can advocate for.
Yes.
And so I think the more people that know us personally, that feel like they know us personally, the more people that feel like they understand that we're just boring old men who like to talk to people, or the more people who will say, okay, it's a little ridiculous that I would be giving money to fund someone to fly to Uganda over something so absurd. Like, leave the gays alone.
Leave us alone. Know? We don't want to be better than anyone else.
Right.
I think that's a misconception. Right. They want more rights than us. No. That's BS. We just want to be like, you know, the funny thing is I can tell you a really quick story if we have the time here.
Please.
I was at this job, and I had met a guy at the job who was, at the time, I didn't know, was homophobic. But he was, you know, playing a good act, I guess. Okay. And at the end of the training session, because we had to train for a while, and at the end he said, you know what? Before I met you, and I found out you were gay, I was very homophobic. But you brought the humanity out in you, and now I don't, That made me cry, literally.
I mean, I bet, yeah.
It was so emotional for me, because I just want to be recognized as a person. That's it. Just a person. You know, I don't want you to leave my family out in schools. You know, they have this don't say gay laws in certain states. You know, why? I can't put a picture of my husband on my desk if I'm a teacher or things like that. It's just absurd to me. And that's why I'm on a soapbox right now, because I'm, you know, I feel the same about any marginalized community. You know, I think we all are humans. We all have all a mission.
Yes.
And we all have to be recognized. So, and thank you for giving me the forum to talk about LGBT issues on your show, because I don't think it's getting out there.
Yeah.
And really not. And yeah, so thank you again for.
I agree. And I do, if anything, because you know, I'm in media now, I do note the lack of representation in media in particular, and then the stories that are told in media are like, I'm like, that's not me either. Like, why aren't you complaining about, you know, a sagging foundation in your old house, or having to get the attic insulated, or any of like the normal, boring day-to-day things?
You see, you hit it on the head. I mean, if you looked, well, I'm older than you, so I remember back in the day when they would film pride parades.
Sure.
We used to call them gay pride. Now it's just pride, but it used to be gay pride. And they'd have cameras, and they'd look for the most outlandish human being.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And everybody thought that you were that human being. You know, like a guy with his buttocks out, you know, or a woman with, you know, exposing herself, or whatever the case may be.
Something to get eyeballs on the TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
The freak factor, I used to call it, because, you know, that's how you get eyeballs to watch it, you know.
Yeah.
But there's 99% of us are boring as hell. We are.
It's so true.
I stay home and clean my house.
Right? Like, leave me alone.
I go to work, come home, cook, clean, bake, do whatever I have to do. That's it.
And podcast.
Well, yeah, that too, yeah. But yeah, it's that's what it is. We're just people.
We're just people. Well, I'm excited for more conversation with this person, Philip Anthony of Downright Upright, the Downright Upright Show. We will be right back. Well, welcome back. You are watching Bottomless Coffee with me, Jerome. We're having a fantastic conversation with Philip Anthony. Philip is the host of the show Downright Upright, and I understand that it's about to come on AM 950 in a couple of months, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. It is, right now it is a podcast on AM 950. We have a website, am950radio.com, and you could look at, we have great shows on AM 950. I don't want to just plug my own show, but we're a progressive radio station. We're the only game in town. You know, you know, there's a lot of right-leaning programming out there, you know, sponsored by, you know, whoever. And we are self-funded. We have sponsors, you know, local businesses and yada, yada. And
it's funny that you mentioned that, because we both have other jobs as well. You know, we do this kind of work. Sometimes you still have to keep the lights on.
Pay the bills. Remember that old Destiny's Child song, "You Could Pay My Bills"?
Yes, I do. I don't know how many seconds of the song you're allowed to sing before I have to pay for it. So.
Oh yeah, well I won't sing it. You don't want to hear me say, you know, no. Anyway.
But we got to talk. We got to talk about COVID. The Department of Health, the Minnesota Department of Health wants you to get your booster for COVID. But how are you impacted by lockdown?
I took, my job offered a buyout.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, it was more like a leave, but it was a buyout because they paid us. And I took it, because if I didn't take it, the people that were under me would have been laid off. And there would have been a lot of unemployed people, and the company didn't want to do that. Some companies were doing that, just firing people, you know, left and right. And I took the buyout, and I was home for a year, Jerome. 1 year.
Do you do well at home? Going from that face, maybe not.
Yes and no.
Okay, because last segment we did say we were boring homebodies, and so.
Well, I do. Well, yeah, right. I am, but I mean, I love people. I have wonderful friends.
Yeah.
I really do. I have to say, I love people. I love my friends. They're amazing. And during COVID, they weren't. Remember, you weren't allowed to go in someone's house.
Yep.
You had to be whoever lived in the house could be in that house. If you didn't live in the house, you had to meet outside or in a park or something. You know.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me. You know, especially in the winter time.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in a park when it's 25 below.
In Minnesota.
You know?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
you know, this show started as a podcast, and that podcast launched during lockdown because that's how I spent my time. All of my creative energy got bottled up, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a podcast." First episodes were terrible. Later episodes got better. Yay.
Same with me.
But you didn't start your podcast during COVID.
After.
So what did you do with all that creative energy?
You mean during COVID?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like you weren't seeing your friends, so you must have been doing something, and I bet it was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I unfortunately, I took up baking.
Oh.
I know how to cook. I'm a good cook, but I can't bake. I couldn't bake.
Were you one of those like sourdough bread people during lockdown? Remember there was a shortage, remember?
Yeah. No. We have a bread machine. So
Oh.
I take the easy way out. No, I wanted to always learn how to, it was an ambition of mine, but I never had the time. Because you know, baking is an art. It's different from cooking.
Yeah.
It's the way you sift the flour, how to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I went on YouTube for hours watching these famous bakers make different kinds of cakes. And
Cool.
so my specialty now is let's see if I can say it right, a coconut pineapple buttercream cake.
That sounds delicious.
Oh my God, it's a lot of work. Took me almost a whole day to do.
Wow.
Because you have to make the icing separate. You have to make the filling separate, and then the cake batter separate. So it's a lot of time consuming.
Well, you've got an interest in cooking, apparently. You're a good cook. Mm-hmm. Got an interest in baking.
Yes.
Why did you end up with a political podcast instead of a baking podcast?
I know you asked me that when we met, yeah.
And then I was like, don't answer, I want to ask you on the show.
I have always been political, only with my friends. I'm not political with people I don't like. If I just meet you, no, absolutely not. I don't want to get into arguments, obviously, and because you know this day and age we're a very, very segmented country. We're a divided country, unfortunately. Okay, it's very sad because I'm an older guy, like I said, and we've never been this, as far as I can remember, this divided, you know. So I don't want to add to that, you know, so I keep my opinions to myself. So it was bottled up.
Sure.
That makes sense. It's like, you blow a balloon too much, it pops, you know. So when I got this opportunity, when I met the owner of AM 950, hi Chad, he said to me, yeah, try it out, Philip. You know, I believe in you. You know, you could do it. You know, and I did it, and now it's doing well, and I'm hoping that everybody out there, you know, listens to it and learns something.
So I love when I can identify an intersection. And I don't know if this is kind of a deep cut related to COVID. And so it's amazing that this has come to mind. But Tina Fey was on SNL. She came on as a guest. Yeah. And she like started baking and cooking a cake, like specifically a cake. And I feel like it was about abortion rights or something like that. But she, like the rights of women, she just kept eating cake because she was eating her feelings, you know, and she's like, there's only so much you can do before you just lose your mind.
That's a great idea.
It was a really great sketch. It was very
combining
resonant.
a cooking show with politics.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it?
It could happen. Because now that you've got the one show, there's nothing stopping you from having more.
Yeah. Right now, I'm up to my eyebrows in this show right now. I mean, I'm doing your show, other people's shows, because through networking, as you know, as a host, you get asked to be on shows too. You know, like I have. I've been on about 4 now. This is probably like the 5th, I think. And, you know, people want to know about my show. And when they come on my show, because again, you're networking, I want to know about their show and vice versa. So it's like we have a conversation about our shows.
You've talked about that a little bit, the networking aspect, in our previous conversations. And every time I kind of walk away thinking, oh yeah, I need to like be more organized with like the network of queer personalities that are available for people who are up and coming, because we do want to promote people who are telling our stories, but we are kind of leaving people to find their own way.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's a spreadsheet. It's just a list. You know, it's all you have to do. But I keep thinking that that's something that I need to do, and I would love to like just list your show on whatever the support thing is, because it sounds like you're having really interesting, really fun conversations.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not, again, I don't want to make it sound like it's all about LGBTQ issues. We had Native American issues on my show, African American issues, progressive issues, women's issues, women's health issues.
Yeah.
Thank you, Minnesota, for being a haven for women's health.
Yes.
Things
for families, families in general. Again, we don't usually get political, but one piece of policy I think that everyone ought to be able to agree on is feeding children. And so now we've got universal school meals in Minnesota, which I think is just beautiful.
Did you see that photo op with the governor and all those kids?
No.
You didn't?
Tell us about it.
Go on YouTube, and it speaks for itself. It's the most moving thing I've ever seen. These kids, I love you, hugging him and kissing him, and they're all like, he looked like Santa Claus with these little kids, because some of these kids don't really have normal schedules of eating, you know, if that makes sense. They eat when they can. Yeah. Their parents are struggling, and now they can get free meals in school and that not worry, you know, besides worrying about schoolwork and stuff, now they don't have to worry about the eating part. They just have to worry about school. So
it's one less
a beautiful
thing for them to have to worry about.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
The fundamentals of like our existence, like food. It's crazy the lengths you have to go to provide the level of support, and how some of us kind of work in, I want to say in silos or individually, because you're taking me back to when I ran for state legislature in 2019, 2020, and I partnered with an organization that at the time was called Sheridan Story, and now I think they're called Every Meal, but they're all about feeding kids. And so you'd pack a brown bag, and they'd sneak the food into the lockers of the children, so that when the kids left, they'd have a meal that they could take home and they could eat.
Oh,
yes,
that's beautiful.
Isn't it? And one frustration that still lingers for me is that school is not year-round here. And so there were definitely circumstances that other volunteers would relate to me, where they'd see a kid at a healthy weight in the spring, early summer, and then they'd come back in the fall when they haven't had access to the food, and you could wrap your hands around their biceps because they'd lost so much weight. And so I love that we've done what we've done, but there's always more to do. You know, there are always opportunities to.
You're right.
To fill.
Well, you know, my husband and I, we volunteer at our church. It's a welcoming church. Welcomes everyone, like Jesus did. Silly me. And we cook at the church, and we give, and they people that are in need, they come and they bring their families, and you have to see these little kids. Oh, thank you, and they hug you, and
oh my gosh,
it's such an amazing feeling to help people. You know.
Yeah. Because
you know, I think love travels. I believe that. You spread love to people, and it goes. It's like a rainbow, kind of spreads out, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm always like doing stuff like that. If I see a lady struggling in the store, I'll help her with her bag. And you want me to carry it? I just feel that that's my mission. It always was, you know. I have that kind of a personality. I've always been that way. My mother used to say, Philip, you never look out for yourself. You need to put a coat on, take your medicine, take your vitamin, stop worrying about, But that's the way I used to take stray animals in and
did you?
take care of them.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I've always been what would you call it? A caregiver.
Sure.
And
I'm like, not me.
a what?
I'm like, not it. I feel as though you are kind of leading with your heart in that way. And like, I will see this problem, this circumstance, and I'll think, oh, there's definitely a better way that we can do this. So at one point, I was working at Best Buy's corporate office, and as part of the program, they had people with special needs and as employees. I don't know what work they were doing, but they were there. And so we'd all have lunch together, and I could see that there was one person with special needs who was not able to hit the handicap button while holding their tray, like in time. Like you had to do, there were these complicated maneuvers. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went over there, I was like, go on in. And then, I worked my way up the chain to find the people who could actually intervene to make things better. You know what I mean? And so I feel like you were like, oh, this is so nice. And I'm like, oh, this is wrong. Like my feeling is like negative when I see the thing. Like this is a problem. Let me go fix it.
I'm an idealist.
Yeah.
It's my flaw, I guess.
It's a pretty good flaw if you're gonna have a flaw.
Thank you. But but also don't piss me off because when it comes to civil rights for anybody, I'm there. I am not going to put up with marginalizing people and treating people less than or othering. All of that stuff to me is barbaric. It kind of gets under my skin. If that's one, if you want to get me angry, that's the way to do it.
Now, you do have politicians on your show.
Yes.
Are you inviting politicians that make you angry, or is it more uplifting, right?
Uplifting.
That's the vibe.
I have not yet had anyone ask from the other side of the aisle to be on my show. And I'll tell you right now, I would be very respectful. I would not interrupt them. I would not be mean, because that's the problem right now in the country is we're not listening. There are people out there, again, other than the ones who want to marginalize, who just want lower taxes, or they just want, I don't know, they don't want a Department of Education.
Yeah.
There are certain kinds of political views that I can understand, but when it comes to civil rights, you lose me when you.
Okay, this is a fun challenge that you will face as your career in media progresses, because there's a big conversation in media about how you interview people. And when you allow people to continue talking without interruption, when you know that what they're saying is wrong. So like if someone came on and they were like, oh, the vaccines have nanobots in them or what have you, the traditional kind of method would be to let them speak and then correct them either like later on in the thing or what have you. But people are so susceptible to misinformation. The vaccines are safe. You need to get boosted, and we have a responsibility not to allow that misinformation. And so, for me, if someone I knew who peddles misinformation wants to come on the show, I'd be like, sorry.
Well, that goes a little, that's endangering people. That's a really big difference.
But because I've been in politics, I can see it a little bit differently, because it'll be like the game, 2 truths and a lie, And so they'll come on and you'll be agreeing with them. You'll be like, oh, that sounds reasonable. And they'll say one thing that's like crazy town banana pants, and then they'll slip right back into being reasonable.
I'm using that. Stealing. Yes, because the vaccines are keeping people alive.
Yeah, and gay people in LGBT community, and we are just humans, and children deserve to eat.
Yeah, and I want to promote, since your show is promoting vaccines.
Oh, sure.
And especially the COVID vaccine. Look at what happened to smallpox. We had vaccines, and now it's almost eradicated. Well, it is eradicated from as far as I know. Polio vaccine. If it wasn't for vaccines, we'd be walking around in wheelchairs and crutches because those vaccines saved humanity.
Yeah.
And we need to promote them. So get vaccinated, people.
Thank you. Now we have shared at least one guest, I think, or at least two guests on our respective shows. Like I recently had Ellie Krug on. She's wonderful.
Love you, Ellie.
We do. Was that a great conversation on your show? I haven't heard it yet.
Yes. Yeah, she was one of my middle episodes, not early, not late. She's in the middle somewhere. I don't remember the number. So you got to go to am950radio.com and look for Ellie Krug. Great interview. She's a wonderful person, and she does a lot for our community, the LGBT community. She really does. I mean, there was an issue, and I don't remember where or what county it was in, but there was a business who they were selling children's clothing, but they had a drag queen story hour for the children. You heard about this?
Yes.
It was in the news.
Yes.
And she went there to support this family for doing that. So yeah, she doesn't just use her words. She goes into action and does things. So great, more people should be like her.
I think you also had Bianca.
She's not yet.
Oh, not yet.
No,
okay.
Next month.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
Yep, she's running for an at-large seat. I don't know if you know who Ruth Richardson is.
Yes.
She was a
state representative.
Yes. Now she's with Planned Parenthood, Minnesota, and so this seat is open.
Okay.
And so it's a primary to find out who will be running in her place.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Wow. So good luck, Bianca.
Good luck, Bianca. She was here. She talked public health. I think she wore like a big "Public Health Saves Lives" shirt. So I think she's another person that's talking the talk and walking the walk.
Exactly. And she came on your show before she decided to run.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just so you know, if you do see the episode of Bottomless Coffee with Jerome, with Bianca as a guest, she didn't mention that because it's an old episode. So just so you know, she'll be on my show talking about her running for office.
Yeah, so you'll have to go to bottomlesscoffeeshow.com to stream the old episode, and then go to AM950
radio
for the new stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be right back with the fantastic Philip Anthony of Downright Upright. Welcome back to Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. We are talking with the fantabulous Philip Anthony of the Downright Upright Show on AM 950. Oh.
I am very impressed. You must have listened to the show.
Oh, because I used the word fantabulous?
Yes, I start every show with that. I hope you're feeling fantabulous. It's fantastic and fabulous. Put together, twice as nice, saves time.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I say. You gotta save time.
Well, I'm really interested in your response to this question. It's a question I like to ask every guest towards the end of our conversations.
Sure.
What is one message, you can have more if you want, that you want to make sure people leave with today?
Yeah, this is going to sound corny.
Okay.
I don't care because it's all about love. Love your neighbor. I mean, it sounds corny. I know it sounds idealistic, but love travels. I keep saying that, just be nice to people.
Yeah.
Love somebody. Do something for someone that you care about without them expecting it.
Yeah.
Surprise them.
That's nice.
Yeah. And, if you have to visit a sick friend and bring them some food or, because you look at the news today and you just cringe. It's just awful, man. The way people are looking at other people, other human beings as non-human.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
You're really onto something there because I do watch a lot of news when I can, more to see like how they're doing things and less about the content. But when I think about the content, it's you've generally a lot of bad news, and then one little intentionally produced like nice thing. It's like, oh, by the way, love still exists in the world. Here's 3 minutes on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And wouldn't it be nice if it were kind of at least 50-50? You know, if you gave the good things in life as much time. But I think we take those things for granted so often that we need reminders to like, you know, wake up in the morning, tell your husband that you like him, that you love him. You know, bring him his coffee in bed. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you know, like today, since you're bringing it up,
I
have to go. My husband knew I was doing this show today, and I never did a TV show. I have a face for radio.
We're the first?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on, you know.
I think you've got a great face for TV.
Thank you. I've been on video podcasts, but not TV, quote unquote. So I was a little, I don't want to say nervous, but apprehensive. Like,
sure.
I didn't want to make a total bleep out of myself. So he's like, I get up, go downstairs, and he made me blueberry pancakes and coffee and fruit. He put fruit. I was like, oh, honey, that's amazing.
That is so sweet.
Yeah, that's the way he is. That's why we get along, because we're both similar that way.
Yeah.
We like helping people and spreading the love around, you know. That's the message.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and your show is spreading the love too.
We're doing what we can.
You are, man. You're kicking it, you know.
How do you think that you'll spread love on your show?
By keep messaging that we're all people, whether we're African American, Native American, gay, trans, who am I forgetting? Inuit, whatever you are, treat that person as if you met them for the first time and you didn't know about the history of them or what their background is, just as a person. I know it sounds very corny again, but we need some corniness, I think, in this world. You know,
we need more Mr. Rogers in our lives.
Well, MLK, man. You know, judging a person by the content of the character. And thank you, MLK, for that message. It's a beautiful message, and unfortunately, we're not listening to our history, to the people that our forefathers who are trying to teach us about how to keep a cohesive society, and we're not doing it, we're not listening. So my show is going to try to force you to be nice.
In a quirky, humorous way.
Fun way, yes. Yep, and I love the guests. The guests are great. AM 950 is great. The hosts, I mean, again, thank you for promoting my show, but there are amazing shows on AM 950. There really are. Like Ellie's show, and I don't want to name one and not the other, but there are a lot. Yeah. A lot. So try to tune in, and especially if you're a progressive person who needs some positive messaging. So
I love that, and I will tune in. Well, thank you.
Oh my goodness,
Philip Anthony of the Downright Upright Show.
You're amazing.
This has been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, it really has.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for what you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. Find out all about us and stream our episodes at bottomlesscoffeeshow.com. See you next time.